Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is good to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Quick sound check. Can you please let me know that you can all hear me? Just say yes. Om Krim Karlikahe Namaha. Excellent. Om Krim Karlikahe Namaha. Alrighty. We'll need some fiery Kali energy tonight. So the question is, there are many questions. They're all to do with people looking to resolve pain and asking questions around how can we resolve pain if we've been hurt. And I wanted to broach the controversial topic, controversial in this area of the internet, that is forgiveness. I've seen people in the past certainly get very, very touchy about the subject of forgiveness if you suggest forgiveness for an abuser. So before I get into these questions, I'm just going to talk to you for 60 seconds about forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean that you are saying that what the person did was okay. Forgiveness does not mean that you are saying that it didn't happen. Forgiveness does not mean that you're letting anybody get away with anything. Forgiveness is something that you don't do it codependently. You don't do it as a gesture of submission or fawning to the other. You do it in your recovery process as one of the first symbolic gestures towards you reclaiming your own personal sovereignty and agency. This is self-interested action to forgive. It's so that you don't have to carry it anymore. And these tend to be in the field of religious questions, and that can get very tricky very quickly for people. So let's talk about this philosophically. I've told you why you must forgive, how to forgive. You must forgive because you'll never heal. You'll never heal. You'll never heal holding hate. When you hold hate and you hold anger and you hold aggression and you hold bitterness, that person is still possessing you in a woo sense, in a mystical sense. The wound is still possessed. You'll never heal while you hate. You'll never heal while you're wishing somebody else ill. It won't happen. Can't happen. And if you do want to heal, you have to find a way to forgive them. Now, what does forgiveness mean in this context? If we do it non-religious, non-spiritual, purely philosophically, I think forgiveness in the broadest, most neutral sense, and we want to be broad here because you must make global shifts in your map of reality if you really want to heal and move on with your life. For some people, there are people metaphorically in cyberspace sat to the left of you and sat to the right of you, and they're chanting alongside you and they're all for this and they're all for that, and you think they're just like you. But for some people, this is a hobby. This is a full-time thing that they do online. So be careful. You don't know them. You don't know somebody by their avatar and a few sentences they write online. For some people, this is a hobby. For some people, this is an authentic obsession, and it's a mental health issue. They're addicted to consuming material about narcissistic abuse online, and they're addicted to playing Stone the Witch online. They're addicted to scapegoating narcissists online. It's actually part of their own personality disorder, ego functioning. They're trying to regulate their own ego functioning. They're trying to regulate ego dystonic feelings of damaged self-esteem. So be careful, and be careful that that's not you. Do you want to get on with your life? Do you want to love again? Do you want to live? Do you want to be an adult? You must forgive. So in the broadest sense, forgiveness is total and absolute acceptance for everything that happened. Total. For everything. All of it. Forgiveness is total acceptance that it did happen. No more denial. It happened. It was real. Who's to accept it? The police, the court, your family, the abuser? No, you. You. Some people will find this hashtag triggering, or one of those phrases I'm not particularly keen on, because it externalizes the locus of control and keeps us infantilized and keeps us as toxically passive victims, receptacles, wank socks for abuse and the culture that goes with it. It's only you. This is the challenge that we're all facing right now with the situation we're in right now. And if you want a mantra, a mantra for your sovereignty, so that you can reclaim your crown, your halo, your spiritual standing, your corona, you say, I am me, and I am only me. I am me, I am only me. It's my body, it's my brain, it's my life, it's my time, it's my heart. If my heart is filled with hatred and rage all day, that is not a day well spent. If you're ready to move on, you've got to accept that it happened without denial, without prevarication, without layering stories on it. And then if you are brave enough, and the question at this point, ladies and gentlemen, for all of us, whether we're discussing narcissistic abuse or things beyond this, is now simply and only one question. Are you courageous enough to deal with the challenge in front of you? Or will you run from it? Do you have the courage to deal with it, or don't you? Can you face it with courage like an adult, or can you not? Forgiveness, then, in the context of narcissistic abuse, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence, whatever it is total acceptance that it happened. Total acceptance that a person could do that, did do that, and it happened. You would need to be looking at a total acceptance that things like this can happen in the world. It's a broadening of your philosophical map. This happens in the world. What are you going to do with that? You say, well, I'm going to become twisted. I'm going to become bitter. I'm going to become infantile. I'm going to spend the rest of my days whining loudly and spreading my negativity to everybody around me and poisoning the well. And I would say, well done. They win. They really win then, don't they? They really win. They infected you with their poison and you went ahead and spread it on, which is exactly what they wanted. That's exactly the agenda that's at play. Take all of the good ones, cut them, poison them with the cut, poison them, and then have them spread that poison on. And when you do that and you succumb to it and you're not courageous, you fail the test and then you pass it on. It's a disease. It's a disease of cowardice. We have all abrogated our responsibility, ladies and gentlemen. We are abrogating our responsibilities every day. And we're being asked to take up the mantle again with courage and reclaim our sovereignty, our agency. But it's just you. It's you with you versus you about you. And you go, that's narcissism. And I'd say, no, that's reality. That's reality. You want to make it about them. You want to make it about him. You want to make it about her. And you know in your heart what I'm saying is true. It's just you. It's you with you. Can you forgive yourself? Can you let this go? It becomes a bad habit after a while. It becomes an addiction. And there's pleasure in it. There is in every addictive cycle. There's no such thing as an addictive cycle that doesn't function, that is completely devoid of pleasure. It ceases to be an addictive cycle. It crumbles. One way of crumbling addictive cycles is to remove the pleasurable reward system component of it. So you must watch for that and be self-disciplined. And then it's time to forgive. And forgiveness means you have to accept it all. You accept what you did, what you didn't do. You should have protected yourself. If you could have protected yourself, you should have protected yourself. So you feel guilty about it. Okay, I feel guilty about it. You forgive. I couldn't protect myself. I was too young. I was too small. Why was I so small? I'm angry that I was so small. Well, you were. And that's what it was. Forgive yourself. Just accept it. Accept every single part of it. Be courageous and you can move forward. Without that, you're going to be stuck in hell. The old samurai poem that I've quoted before, I'll quote it again, translated into English. Hell gapes beneath the upraised sword. Step in, and heaven is your reward. If we turn our backs again, if we leave it to somebody else again, we remain in hell. We remain locked in hell. If we're courageous, we can claim the halo. We can claim the crown. We can claim our sovereignty. That's the test. It's very simple. Do you want your halo or not? Or will you succumb to the virus of fear? Will you succumb to the virus of hatred and spite and bitterness and being stuck in the past, possessed by somebody or something that has already moved on to somebody else? It's time to move on, ladies and gents. And that means you must forgive. And forgiveness means total acceptance. And you're going to have to grow the fuck up. You're going to have to stop playing the fuck around. Because when you're playing too much. You're acting like this is a game. You kick me like I'm a Coke machine sometimes. Some of you. Mostly not, but some of you. You kick me like I'm a Coke machine in frustration. Give me the answer I really want. Not that answer, give me another one. I'm not a Coke machine. And I don't respond to being kicked. I can't save you. Nobody can. Nobody can. It's you, with you, with you, with you. The one phrase that you want to be holding on to is, I am me. It's my body, it's my brain, it's my time, it's my heart. Nobody's coming to save me. Big brother's not coming. Big brother's not coming. Big sister's not coming. Mummy, daddy, they're not coming. The old Jewish gods, the old Greek gods, the old Egyptian gods, they're long dead. They're not coming. Nobody's coming. This is it. This is our moment. It's just us. It's just us. To the questions, given the context I've just given you. How do you deal with feelings of hatred, rage, and revenge towards a toxic person who is no longer in your life? Well, dealing with uncomfortable feelings is a skill. It requires courage and it requires maturity. And you'll need to develop the skill of emotional literacy. And you'll need to stop repressing and suppressing your emotions. And you'll have to accept them, even the ugly ones, even the ones that you don't like, even the ones that you think are outside of your self-image. And you're going to have to start reframing them, not as some toxic bile that comes up, but as a message from the unconscious. What is the message telling you? If we accept, or we can not accept, if we can play with the idea philosophically that emotions are messengers with a positive intent, what would the positive intent of rage be? What would the positive intent of hatred be? Everybody sat there going, I don't know. Yeah, because you won't do the emotional literacy work. Even though I've asked and asked and asked, and I have guided you by the hand, step by step, and some of you still won't do it. You still won't do it. You won't sit for 5 minutes and take out a pen and a piece of paper and write down your own fucking emotions on a piece of paper. Today I felt. You won't do it because you're terrified. Okay, so let's start there. What's the problem here? I'm clogged up with feelings of hatred and bitterness and rage. I disagree that that's the problem. I say your problem is that you're terrified of your own feelings and you need to get to grips with them. What you resist persists. You're pushing it back. You're pushing back bitterness, hatred, rage. Invite it in. My God, these emotions have been keeping us alive. They've kept our forefathers alive. That's why we're here. It wasn't all fucking puppy dogs and rainbows. We have fought through our bloodlines to be here. Fought tooth and nail. Endured incredible suffering and pain to be here. That's your genetic bloodline. That's who you are. All the weak ones are dead. They didn't procreate. They didn't reproduce. They didn't replicate. They're gone. There's me and there's you. All right. So where does hatred and rage come into that? Well, if at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm chilling with my tribe and another tribe comes, I better have the willingness to get up and pick up a rock and start smashing in some skulls. Yeah. Oh, I don't like that. It's violence. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but you live inside of a complex on a high wall guarded by men who keep the fucking demons of the night out. But you don't want to look at that either. So I'm sat here going, what do you fuckers want to look at? What do you want to look at? You're entirely reliant on violence, but we can't talk violence. I don't know. Oh, it's icky. Well, that's how you live. That's how I live. People are out there right now slitting throats in my name, under my flag. What about yours? Hatred, rage, bitterness. They got us where we are today. Okay, thank you. Thank you, hatred, for allowing me to club my enemies to death in previous lifetimes. Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't look good on an Instagram profile picture. Yeah, it doesn't go over well on some fucking cutesy Facebook post, but that is the reality of who you are and what you are. Accept it or don't. Have the courage to accept reality or don't. I'm not actually on Team Human right now. I'm not on Team Human. I'm on Team Detachment. Whatever will be, will be. I'm not driving myself crazy hoping we pull through. I see it for what it is. It's a test. Pass or fail. I did my part. Ladies and gents, I did my part. I've been at this for 10 years. I did my part. What did you do? So hatred and rage, that's part of you. If you fear them, they will possess you and they will haunt you. If you invite them in and you talk to them and you accept them and you say, thank you, hatred, thank you, rage, thank you, the desire for vengeance. You got me here. Now, is it time to evolve? Do we still need to smash in skulls? What do you think, boys and girls? Philosophical question. The personal is political, the political is personal. Do we still need to smash in people's skulls? Yes or no? It's real fucking simple. It's this simple stuff. It's not, oh, it's too hard, it's politics. No, no, no. I'm asking it real simple. Do we still need smashing skulls? Yes or no? Are we devoid of responsibility if we're in a system that relies on hatred and rage and vengeance? Are we devoid of responsibility or are we partly responsible? These are just philosophical questions. Accept the emotion, accept who you are and what you are, accept the privilege with which you live, accept the mistakes that you made, accept that you still have life. You can still breathe. You still have air in your lungs, or at least some of us do. The uninfected do. Interesting that it attacks the lungs, no? Interesting that it reminds you of the privilege of being able to breathe because you're alive. So you can breathe. I see it as a gift. I see it as a gift. That's absolutely a gift. And we'll either respond to it as a gift and say thank you, or we'll deal with it the other way. How do you forgive yourself after falling for hoovers and giving the narcissist second chances? Human beings make mistakes in life. You usually know what it is that you needed to know right after it was that you needed to know it, right? That seems to be how wisdom works. It's part of this weird simulation that we're in. It clearly has a funky sense of humor. You'll know what you needed to know right after you needed to know it. And then you go, ow, that hurts. So you're a human. You didn't know. And now you do. Why complicate it? Why complicate it? It was a mess. So you say it was a mess. The whole thing was a mess. What a mess. I fucked up. This person was a real piece of shit. I should have got rid of them quickly. You didn't know. If you did, you wouldn't have done it, right? There you go. So you just accept that you didn't know. You're fallible. How did you deal with the loneliness, isolation, and cognitive dissonance of knowing that your partner, romantic, was emotionally and psychologically abusive, whilst the outside world they were respected? Probably the hardest thing in my process, and I went through it twice because I'm stubborn and I learned the hard way, was the fact that other people responded the way that they did. and stubbornly refused to listen to me and stubbornly refused to see the signs that the person wasn't clearly what they were, there is a certain privileged position that beautiful, sexually desirable girls enjoy in society. It's sacrosanct. I daren't barely even talk about it. It's such a taboo, but they are treated differently. All attractive people are treated differently. Sexually attractive people have good DNA. People want to breed with them. People want to fuck them. They go up the status hierarchy. Women more so than men, because women have higher value than men. Men can take life and become murderers and soldiers, but women can give life. So they enjoy a higher level of privilege. And I saw that, and it was hard, but I acclimatized to it. I accepted it. I forgave the people who were playing into their games, forgave them by accepting them, by accepting what it is. And I was like, it's not even personal. It's not even a personal thing. It just happens to be that way. This is how it goes. People aren't personally trying to make your life harder by not empathizing with the pain that you're in after a narcissistically abusive relationship. Excuse me while I shut the window. Some fucking knob on his bike. How do I deal with people who don't want to understand that change is happening now, will and should have a long-lasting effect on our lives, and all they care about is getting back to normality? How do I deal with people who don't want to understand? Probably the best way to deal with this is just like through the feedback loop. Like, you're telling me that they don't want to understand. And then you're saying the change is happening now, will and should have a long lasting effect on our lives. And all they care about is getting back to normality. Well, they don't want to understand. So how should you deal with them? It's not your responsibility to teach people how to live or what to think. And even if it was, how the hell would you do it? Even the people who we pay to do that struggle to do it. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Everybody's free to think and believe whatever they want, right? So don't be attached to the idea that you've got to convince people that they need to see the world as you see it. They don't need to see the world as you see it. They can see it however the hell they want. I hope that they do. I hope that they see it all the way they want to see it. What is the role or use of situationally correct anger in the healing process? Anger is a beautiful emotion. It's like laughter or lust or any of the emotions. It serves a purpose. It serves you. It serves me. If it is not neurotic, if it's an emotional flashback and it's rooted in neurosis, it's not so good, which is why we do our emotional literacy and we learn to accept our feelings, all of them, so that we know when a feeling is authentic and when it's just a neurotic flashback to trauma in the past. Anger is compelling. I just got angry. And people will find it compelling. They'll find it motivating. They'll find it inspiring, and people will make changes because of the feeling. Your state transmits. So if I'm passive and quiet and patient, that will have one effect. And if I'm angry and fiery, that will have a different effect. So anger can inspire. Anger can motivate us to break through barriers that we previously thought we couldn't break through. And we are approaching a time where we will be invited to become angry. And we might not. We might flop like a limp penis, a limp, dribbly penis, back down into unusefulness. And I would say, fine, that's where we're at right now. Give it another 20,000 years, 30,000 years. We obviously need to evolve a little bit more. Or we will respond with appropriate, as you put it, situationally correct anger, and we'll make the necessary changes, and we'll break the boundaries that we weren't supposed to break before, but that now have become necessary. It's up to people, innit? What they want to do. I'm not everybody. I'm just me, and I'm responsible for me. And I've done my bit, and I'm doing my bit, and that's it. Is there a way you can recommend breaking off relationships like this with a parent? Oh, this person's stuck with the mum. My fear is destroying her, but I'm aware that with her in my life, she has been destroying me. So when we live in a toxically passive culture, when we are wank socks for culture, all of us are, because we've all been watching TV since we were kids. Everyone watching this has been watching TV since they were kids, including me. So you're a wank sock for culture. What you're used to is being a passive receptacle for somebody else's steamy satanic goo. And you think that's normal, but it's not normal. It's actually not normal at all. But when we get passive, we get depressed. When we get passive, because we can't activate anger, we get cranky. So instead of anger, which is transformative, breaks bonds, breaks boundaries, and emancipates, we have crankiness. And then we engage in petty disputes, petty territorial disputes over nothing. Things like pronouns. Too many people arguing about pronouns right now, you'll notice. That's funny, isn't it? Isn't that strange? That's gone. Where's it gone? Where's it fucking gone? So, yeah, your unwillingness to feel anger is a problem, my friend. But it's worse than that, because you're talking about your mother and you're unwilling to feel anger towards your mother. But being more systemically factual in my words and being more nuanced and accurate, probably what I could say is you were trained to not feel, to not express, and then eventually through brainwashing to not feel any negative emotions towards mother. So you must fractionate your way into feeling negative emotions towards your mother. What you said is, is there a way you can recommend breaking off relationships like this with a parent? And what you meant was, is there a clean way I can do this where I don't feel guilty and mummy doesn't guilt trip me? No, there's no clean way of getting this one done. The only thing that you can do, it won't be clean because she won't let it be clean. And probably you won't let it be clean, like, because you're trained into this. You can accept that it's going to be messy, and you can accept that it's going to be necessary. Fractionate into, lean into negative feelings towards mother. Break that taboo. My fear, you said, is destroying her. And here we have clearly identified an infantile belief. You will not destroy her. You do not have that power. She's only convinced you that it will destroy her. That's all. That's all. And let's ask a philosophical question at this point. Is it okay to destroy your mother? Is it ever okay to destroy your mother? Is it ever okay to destroy your father? When would it be okay? Imagine somebody's kidnapped you, and it's like one of those creepy horror movies that were popular in the late 2008 to 2015 era. And it's one of these rooms where they've kidnapped you and they've set it up. So the only way that you can leave the room, you're chained to a wall, there's a key, you can unchain it, you can go to the door, you can unlock the door, and you can leave and go and live a normal life. But they've set it up so that if you do that, they're literally killed. I don't know, some Edgar Allan Poe thing, like they're slashed with some huge pendulum. Whose responsibility is it? What are you going to do? That's actually a pretty fucking good question. What are you going to do? I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd SpongeBob it. I'm a head out. Later. Oh, you set all this up like this? Well, that was silly. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to sit here with you in this crazy torture chamber that you designed and spent years creating? I'm not fucking doing that, you lunatic. What did you do that for? That was silly, wasn't it? Well, I'm leaving, and whatever the consequence of me leaving is whatever you fucking designed it to be. Ta-ta, and off I'd go. But that's an interesting philosophical thing to do. That's a thought experiment. It's an interesting one. However, let's now consider on top of that, that's not the situation. It's not the situation at all. They would never put themselves in a scenario where if you left, it would, a great pendulum would swing down Edgar Allan Poe style and chop their heads off. They'd never do that to themselves. They love themselves far too much. They're just guilt tripping your ass to think that that's what's going to happen. But it won't. It won't. It won't destroy her. It will upset her because it will create narcissistic injury if you individuate. Because your mother, this is a male questioner, is probably a fucking textbook borderline, malignant borderline. And she doesn't want her little boy, who's part of her, to leave her because she was going to experience that as, the most devastating abandonment ever in her life. I am me. It is my body. It is my brain. It is my heart, and it is my time. And there are no fucking refunds. So you do what you want, my mate. You want to, because you're not even stuck in a dungeon that's real. You're stuck in a dungeon that was designed by an 8-year-old. That big pendulum that's supposed to come down and chop her head off is some old broom that might just clip her on the top of the noggin, which is probably a little clip she needs anyway. It's not real. You going and being a man on your own without her, if it would kill her, then let her die. Let her die. Let all the old die. The world doesn't belong to the old. That's what being old is. Every year that passes, every minute that passes, the world is less and less yours. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the young. It belongs to the future, not to the past. But every year that passes in our culture, the old take more and more of that space. They take up a little bit more power. They take up a little bit more space, and they cause a little bit more trouble, don't they? So I say, if you're genuinely in a torture chamber that mummy created, where if you leave, she gets her head chopped off, then leave and let the old die. But don't worry, mate, you won't have to live with the trauma of that guilt. You're not in such a torture chamber. She's winding you up. And if you leave, she'll be hurt. Oh, I hurt my mum's feelings. Well, welcome to adulthood. Welcome to being a man. What kind of a man isn't going to hurt his mother's feelings, isn't going to hurt his father's feelings? And if they're that hypersensitive, maybe they need some other fucking hobbies than controlling their children's lives. I don't know. Tell her to take up bridge or something. Go play golf. They're wasting my time. So you can't live your life being unwilling to hurt people. And obviously that was a very veiled reference to the coronavirus. This is another part of the coronavirus puzzle. We're going to have to be okay with old people dying, right? Like, and you're saying, and then people in the comments be like, it's not only killing old people. Okay. Statistically, the overwhelming majority of people who, at this point, as far as we trust the tests, if we can trust them at all, and we assume that people are being positively tested with COVID-19, not just the coronavirus, the overwhelming majority will be old. And yes, sometimes young people die. Tragic things are happening all over the world every day. I don't know why we suddenly got so hypersensitive just because somebody said the word pandemic. All of a sudden, we're the kindest, most gentle people ever. We're going to turn our world upside down. People die all the time. The vulnerable die. That's the world we live in. Now, as I said before, do we still need to live in a world that functions on smashing people's brains in if they don't do as they're told? Well, it's tricky when you've spent generations and siphoned money into training men like me, by the way, with a similar personality type to me, to do just that. And then you take over the world and you have huge standing armies that have the consumption of entire countries stood there doing nothing. It's pretty difficult to flip the switch and say, we don't need this anymore. Similarly, do we still need to live in a world where the old and vulnerable are just dead and only the strong survive? Well, actually, let me flip that on its head. It wouldn't be old and young, would it? It'd be rich versus poor. If you're rich, you're going to live at a certain level, and if you're poor, you're going to live at another level. It's not, that split is not old and young, it's rich and poor. Do we still need that? Do we have to continue living like this? These are the important questions. But yeah, I'd say if you're really in a situation where your mother has set it up so that if you leave and go be a man, she dies. Bye, mum. Can't wait to see the comments I get back on this. It's going to be beautiful. You hate old people. You hate mothers. You hate women. You hate humans. You hate men who won't leave their mothers. You man-shamed him. Shut the fuck up. We've got bigger problems right now. Okay, thank you very much for your questions, guys. I'm now going to switch to the live chat. I'm going to try and take people's questions in the live chat. If it's an essay, I'm not going to read it. Mary Newton says, "I've had it, Richie. Shut the fuck up. It's worse than the flu." Yeah, my brother got it. I love you, but you don't know what you are saying. I forgive you. Okay, but seriously, if you want to know, ask me. Oleg says, "Hello, Oleg. I've witnessed a woman having her purse snatched from her, and I froze, not knowing what should be done. How does one overcome the shame of not knowing what to do there?" It's probably there's a book out called "Civilized to Death." There is like a slow march in civilization towards a certain way of being. And the more civilized we become, and the more we deny our true natures, the more repressed, the more constipated, the more cranky and irrational, emotional people can get. So, you know, overcoming that would be like a whole overhaul of the way you operate. And I don't know how deep it would need to go, mate. Everybody's different. I don't have a pat answer for you on that one, I'm afraid. It could be very, very difficult. It could mean you might need major therapeutic process to get you to the point where you would relive that scenario, see a woman's purse getting snatched and do something or not do something. I don't know. I might take a look at that scenario. Like if I was in Malaysia and I saw two lads on a scooter and someone was getting their purse snatched, I might just let the purse go. Because if I go over and try and grab them, I'll probably get stabbed. I'm not getting stabbed over a purse. Yeah, it's a purse. It's a phone. Yeah. You know, I'd help her. I'd call the police, but I wouldn't be like, da-da-da-da, unhand that woman's purse, you scallywags. Let's go. It's only a purse. You get stabbed up real quick and die real quick. Any questions, guys? Make it one sentence long. End it in a question mark, please. Right on, Richard. I knew a woman in Coda who said her mum could guilt trip anyone. I told her, nope, I prefer to go against the guilt because it's just someone trying to manipulate me. Exactly. If you set there's a hard boundary for not being manipulated, and you just go, I'm not going to be manipulated by anybody, then you can't really get guilt tripped. Mama Llama, Richard Grannon, that's me. Isn't getting stuck on anger at your ex-narcissist a kind of not letting go of them so you can, not letting them go so you can heal? Yep, that is correct. That's exactly what it is. Do you think, Harley says, do you think there's a rise in passive aggressive people? And how do I deal with them when I would rather be outwardly aggressive because it's more honest? What you've got is a rise in more narcissistic ways of interacting. Interrelating has become more narcissistic in its style. And there is a type of narcissistic personality disorder that we probably should all be looking a little bit more at, which is negativistic, which means the person becomes passive aggressive. So they probably don't feel the best way of working their will is to be openly and outwardly aggressive, so they become passive aggressive. Passive aggression is a pain in the arse. It's draining. But yeah, there will be. We see that. I mean, and to a degree, social media entrains people into thinking that it's okay, into just being obnoxious, being rude. That's part of our boundaries kind of dissolving in a way that's not so healthy. One two says, Richard Grannon, was your experience with demons and jinn in a psychedelic trip? My specific experience with jinn was in what you would call a vision, and in dreams in Malaysia at a particular point in my life where I was working with a guy who was a Sufi mystic who was praying for me to fix my broken heart. And he was doing various pieces of work with me. So I had a lot of, in that period, I had a lot of what you would just call mystical experiences. I did have psychedelic trips where I saw demons, but that was like 15 years before, when I was 18, 19 years old, taking acid. Sunring says, Fortness videos. This is a reference to Fortress videos. Those I want to keep being shot in the Liverpool Science Park. I am not allowed into the Liverpool Science Park. I don't want to do them on a sofa. They've been started in an office on a proper whiteboard. I don't want to change the format when this pandemic passes. If it passes, whatever, then I will go back to doing the Fortress videos. In my notes from your emotional literacy, I had written pronoun density. Was that from you? I didn't write pronoun density in your notes, no. Aisha says, can seeing an opposite sex therapist heal one's issues with the opposite sex parent? I wouldn't overemphasize that. There are people who think that that's a good thing to do. Like, so you have a man and he's had a bad mother, and all the women in his life, and all the women in his life up until that point were bad. So he can have a positive relationship, a nurturing relationship with a woman and a therapist, and that's good for him. But I personally don't think it's all that important. Getting a decent therapist is way more important. Is not this current situation a perfect opportunity to transcend old patterns and forget about narcissists? Because we have more important things to think about, like trying to survive. Indeed. Any questions, guys? Oh, God. How do I know when to stop forgiving and start smashing skulls? There isn't much room outside of the military for you to be smashing skulls, sir. Don't smash anybody's skulls in unless you think you would enjoy being locked up in a big house, eating crappy food with a lot of burly men for a significant portion of your life on this planet. If you could use a more human term to describe narcissism, what would it be? Fuckstick. Are these people stuck in a frozen stress response? It's not the primal response of freeze, though that can show up. It's narcissistic personality disorder is fight fawn, is a fight response with a fawning response. They are stuck. There is a frozen element to them, which is their vulnerable feelings are the true self, the vulnerable self from childhood is frozen behind a mask of aggression and manipulation, and all those vulnerable feelings have died. So there is that element there that is frozen. Callie says, would you consider a video with a rehabilitated, healed narcissist? I would not. Being in a codependency support group is a good idea. That's a question because you stuck a question mark on the end. It could be. I don't know. How do I stand up for myself without me feeling like I'm being perceived as a bitch, and be a leader without being seen as controlling or bossy? Well, don't stand up for yourself, but don't be a bitch about it. And be a leader, but don't be controlling or bossy. Right? And you go, well, that's not much of a fucking answer. You, as a woman, can stand up for yourself. Now, it's about intent and boundaries and emotion. So, say a human stands up for themselves. Let's take the sex of the human out of it for a second. So, a person stands up for themselves and they're being brave, and you go, that's good. When are they being a bitch? When do they cross over into being a bitch? Like, what's a bitch? I would say a bitch is when you're going over the line. Like, you're now not standing up for yourself. You're being vindictive. You're saying things that are mean, that are catty. You're deliberately attacking the person. It's an ad hominem attack. I was going to say it's the same as being a bastard, but a bastard doesn't really imply that. A bastard is just being harsh. So whether it's a male or a female, being a bitch, where you cross over into being a bitch is when you get nasty. And it's never necessary to get nasty when you're standing up for yourself. You could be standing up for yourself right the way through to using lethal force, and you can still remain dignified. You can still do what you need to do and it just becomes a thing that you do. So that's an internal boundary. That's a problem. When you want to be a leader, you shouldn't be bossy as a leader. So let's look at the word bossy. When somebody's leading, what's a good leader? Like, if you see me as a leader, where are the good traits of me being a leader? And you go, well, he's good at this, good at this, good at this. And you go, when's he a bitch? When's he being a bitch? When's he say stuff and do stuff I don't like? Okay, he does that and that. I won't do that. When is he bossy? Oh, he's bossy when he says this and this. Okay, I'm gonna avoid that in me. You could do it with me. You could do it with other people. Anybody you've seen in like a leadership role. Bossy again is drawing outside the lines. Bossy is like abuse of power. Bossy is you're asking people to do stuff that you could do, but you don't want to do. You just want to boss them around for the enjoyment of the ego. So in both of them, ego has slipped in. Overt narcissist is obvious, and red flags go right up from the start. What are some early signs of covert narcissist? If they're good, there should be no early signs. You'd not see any early signs in covert narcissists. That's what makes them so dangerous. You might feel a few things are off, and generally speaking, as soon as you feel a few things are off, that's when you should be like, whoa, okay, we need to deal with this. Please leave streams up if you can, says Adam. I enjoy them. They all get left up, mate, all of them. People are giving me money. I don't really know how this money thing works. I do appreciate it though. Thank you very much. Only give money, obviously, if you can afford it. I have money, and some people don't, and they're struggling. So keep it, give it to somebody. If you know somebody who needs help, give them that. CD sent me $50 here. Thank you for your time and effort you put into your CPTSD course. Thank you. And I'm not the same person as I was before doing it. I'm grateful. Thank you very much. Okay, a few more questions, and then I'm going to call it a night. When is working on yourself enough? Hi, Maria. Good to see you. Enough, as in you've done enough? You'll know. You'll know. You won't have the same questions keeping you alive anymore at night. Is guilt the ego's last resort? I wanted easy questions at the end, homie. Is guilt the ego's last resort? If you mean like according to the Adlerian school of psychotherapy, where you are pushing, if you buy into Adler, and I do now, I did like very, very convinced. So if you buy into his concept of life lies, and you believe that actually a lot of what we do, we're doing to avoid responsibility, and we're doing because we just don't have the courage to do what it is we really want to do, then guilt would be the ego, one of the ego's ways of tricking you into not. So you would tell yourself a life lie like, I'm not leaving my girlfriend, or I'm not going to split up, I'm not going to end the relationship I have with my abusive mother because I feel guilty. And it's actually like, nah, you're just scared. So it's not the last resort, but it is like one of the lines of things that they would do. Thank you for sending more money. I was like, as soon as I say don't send me money, people are like, oh, have some money. Have it. I'm fine. Seriously, I'm fine. We all know people who need it. I'm not, it's not posturing like there's people struggling for food. So you give me a tenner, you give me $50 or something. There's probably people frighteningly close to you right now who are looking at their kids going, how the fuck am I going to feed them next Wednesday night? Do narcs start arguments more when they see you are in a good mood? Yes. Well, let's not, because this could become like an infographic that goes up on Instagram. It's not so simple. Let me say it like this. They definitely choose their moments. And you being in a good mood could be a sign of individuation, could be a sign of you moving away, could be a sign of you waking up and leaving them. So they have to pop that balloon. Do they realize what they're doing? Or is it unconscious? Our consciousness is not that clear cut. So yes and yes. Yes and yes. They're unconsciously compelled to do that, but they're not unaware of what they're doing either. Do you think narcissists and psychopaths deserve to have human rights? Of course I do. Of course I do. You've got to remember that narcissists and psychopaths were children once as well. And this is childhood trauma. Narcissism and psychopathy is childhood trauma. It is a defensive response to trauma. It is PTSD. It is CPTSD. So absolutely, they deserve human rights. It's a mental health issue. And whilst at the moment I remain very, very cynical about any attempt to do standard therapy with them that is not fully immersive. And I've said this many times and I'll say it again. Like, if you wanted me to do therapy with narcissists and psychopaths, I would be like, okay, open up a black budget and waive their human rights, because I need them in a totally controlled environment where I'm daddy. And it would be like, well, it couldn't just be me. It depends on how many you give. So if there's 20 narcissistic psychopaths, there needs to be. So I get cloned in this bizarre scenario, this sci-fi scenario. I get cloned 20 times, and then they have every element of their life completely controlled by me in an abusive manner, until semi-abusive. So I would be like the cult leader. I'd trauma bond them to me. I'd be abusive and then kind, abusive then kind, to infantilize them back to childhood. I probably would need to use psychedelics. And then I would hope to reparent them back from childhood, back to adulthood. And I'd say, God knows what it would cost. It's completely illegal. You're probably looking at 6 or 7 years. 6, 7 years. And it would be like at the end of the Christopher Nolan film, The Prestige. Once I've done my magic trick, somebody's going to have to go and shoot 19 of me. And we'll all be arguing, going, I was the original one. I was the original one. Don't shoot me. It was him. He's a clone. He's a clone. He's a clone. So, in other words, I'm being facetious. It's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. All of what I just said was a all of what I just said was a joke. My facetiousness is to point to what I believe to be true. And this is a good point. This is something that I probably will wrap this session on. It's not like a phobia. It's not like I don't like the color red. It's not like I'm allergic to the sound of people chewing. This is a full-scale annihilation of the ego in childhood. So it is very systematic, long-term, pronounced abuse. That child goes to hell and stays there and is raised by demons. And then they are just released at the age of 18 out into the world. And narcissism, like you take narcissism and you have somebody who's vain and annoying and abusive, and you take a psychopath and you go, wow, they're extremely fucking dangerous. They could club a few people to death, but they also tend to have low impulse control and they're not that bothered about not getting caught. So they tend to end up in jail. The problem is we don't live in the age of the narcissist and we don't live in the age of the psychopath. That's passe. We live in the age of the narcissistic psychopath. It's extraordinarily dangerous because it's like a virus that's mutated and gotten stronger. So the psychopathy, the desire to mash people's heads in and rape and kill and steal all the money and burn the village, when that side of the person comes up, the narcissist side, it's like dissociative identity disorder, slides in and goes, no, not now. Later, let me just charm the villagers first. And then we can do it at 4 o'clock in the morning and we won't get caught. Where the psychopath would have just gone, burn them, drink their blood, and would have been killed or caught. The narcissist side can take over. Similarly, when the narcissist is doing their thing and they get to a certain point, they're like, God, I really want more fame. I really want more power. I really want more narcissistic supply. And if I did this thing, it would kill a bunch of poor people. Fuck it, I won't do that. The psychopath comes over and goes, wait a moment, just stay there. Just consider the possibility that these people don't need to live anymore. They're already poor. Just let them die. Order the drone strike, order the drone strike, order the drone strike. So it's really fucking dangerous. It's a total erosion of ego boundaries. So the non-joking side of it is, unless you take the client back to childhood, no, I don't buy it. I'm not buying it, that there's a cure for narcissism or psychopathy. And even if you did, like take my crazy sci-fi scenario, probably what you would have if it worked, let's say my style, my way of doing it, there's a 30 to 40% chance that it worked. You know what you'd have? You know what would come out the other end of that? They wouldn't be fully formed normal human beings. They would be smiling, happy, emotionally regulated, fairly dull, fairly empty-headed cult followers. They'd be my marketing team. And that's why I have all those people kidnapped on the ground right now. They'd be like, yeah, Richard Gran's really cool. He's really, and they wouldn't be abusive anymore and they wouldn't do it, but they would have also have been through an ego wipeout at the age of 3, then another ego wipeout at the age of 45 when they get sent against their will to my re-education camp. And then after 2 hardware wipes, you're supposed to build them back up. We're getting into like, just don't fucking abuse kids. How hard is it? Just fucking don't abuse kids. How hard is that? Never say never. I'd never say never. I've always got hope. And do remember that some of these things do take place on a sliding scale. But if somebody's all the way gone, then they're all the way gone, man. They're all the way gone. They're not only totally resistant to therapy. This is the literature. It's published literature. Therapy makes them worse. Therapy feeds them. Therapy allows them to practice. Therapy gives them high grade, 100% Colombian narcissistic supply. There's an empty room with one paid professional adult who's just fascinated with them because they have a rare personality. I'm like, oh, there's so much naivety in psychology, so much what Sam Vaknin calls malignant optimism. Psychology, if there's another field that has more malignant naivety in it, please, more malignant optimism and naivety in it, please somebody tell me. Because psychology is by far the most ludicrously naive subject. Of course, people who are in their essence criminals and exploiters, of course they're going to criminally exploit the therapeutic process. Of course they're going to. Don't be so fucking daft. I'll take one more question and we'll call it a night. Any questions, folks? One sentence long. End it in a question mark. Bum, bum, bum. Jane Quinn says that is truth. It starts with the parents and the baby. Yes, it does. Hazer, Mamad Zaid, can they be cured with spirituality? Oh my God, no. No. You pour spirituality on a narcissist, gasoline on an open fire, my friend. My God. There is so much opportunity for abuse with religion and spirituality. I mean, unfortunately, the narcissistic and psychopathic worldview sits right alongside the zealot, hardline, fundamentalist religious view. To the extent that I would say you can map the traits and you can put them one on top of the other. So if they're a hardline fundamentalist zealot, psychopath, and if they're a hippy dippy Californian pseudo spiritual virtue signaling vegan poser, then you've got a narcissist. And so yeah, no, there's no cure. I think they just eat it all up. There's nothing wrong with veganism. I don't care what you put in your mouth. Just don't bore me with the details. Richard, read my super chat, please. I am very old, my friend. I don't know how it works. How do you feel with family members who go out of their way to make you feel like an outsider? I forgive them, man. I just don't hang around with them if they're doing that. I can't see a super chat from you. How do I find the old super chat? I don't know how to do it. I am very sorry. Michael G. I will not give in. I thought if I open YouTube, I'll be able to find your super chat, mate. I can't. You know what you should have done? You should have just repeated your question when you told me that you'd done a super chat for it. That would have been more efficient. Michael G, repeat your question and I'll see if I can find it. Abdi Aziz, I am 22. I know I have the typical NPD. I want to go through the cold therapy. Can I achieve total wipeout of NPD? You can, sir. Yes, you can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. How do I reflect on how I may have changed as a result of toxic relationship, narcissist fleas, so that I'm not dysfunctional afterwards and can repair my other relationships that have been damaged? There's a book called Extreme Ownership, and it's by a Navy SEAL called Jocko Willing. And I loved it when I read it. I was doing a tour in America, a tour of America, not a tour in America. God help me, a tour of America, like a lot of different major cities. And I really like listening to him sometimes. And his style is very sort of reflective and it's in your face. And what he would say immediately sprung to mind, which is, you asked me, how do I self-reflect on how I may have changed as a result of the toxic relationship so that I'm not dysfunctional afterwards? Well, Willink style, you must self-reflect on how you've changed. How do you self-reflect? Maybe write a list of the ways in which you've changed as a result of the toxic relationship and the ways in which that's made you dysfunctional or could make you dysfunctional, and the ways in which you could repair your relationships that have been damaged. Face Me says, where do you live? I'm not telling you where I live, but I know where you live. I know people who know people. Samantha Wright says, how do codependents know when info gathering on narc abuse has become avoidance? Well, it's all avoidance, really, because it's avoiding crying and going, oh my God, I wasted my life. I thought they loved me and they didn't. I'm in the process of writing a book. It's taken a worldwide, global fucking lockdown to get me to the point where I sit in front of my laptop. I'm busting out 2,500 words a day, homies. And because it's a book on narcissism and recovery from narcissistic abuse, recovery from CPTSD and codependence, I'm going to put it out there. But I'm also telling more of my story, which I don't really share on YouTube because I'm not comfortable with it. But I'm happier doing it via a book. And I have to go through like the stories of this stuff. And there's an awful lot that we will do to just not look at how bad it was and how bad the position we are in is. But you've got to take an assessment, a cold-hearted, detached, military-style assessment of your current situation before you can get out of it. So take stock of your life from where you're up to. Be brutal. Tell the truth to yourself, to other people. Write it down. Just go, okay, this is what I lost. This is what sucks. I put on weight. I got addicted to this. My self-esteem is like that. I released a video from the UCLA seminar called My Girlfriend Beat Me Up, or My Girlfriend Beat the Shit Out of Me Spiritually, where I sit with a woman and she's telling me how bad our last relationship was, and she's still in tremendous pain. And I could see it. And I was like, would it help to just for you to hear me say that my ex-girlfriend beat the shit out of me emotionally? She beat me. She whipped me. I think if she could have made me die, or John said something that would cause me to commit suicide, I genuinely think she would have considered that a success. She destroyed my self-esteem. She destroyed who I was, so on and so forth. And I went down this road, and the woman in front of me, it was on instinct. It was like an instinctual thing. I'll try this because it was a seminar. I was like, well, see what happens. But because of that empathy, where you hear somebody else's story and it matches your story, it caused a shift in her. Wasn't a happy shift. Like she was crying, but that's what life is after abuse. You will cry. It hurts. It's going to hurt. But the crying is part of the process, and the crying is part of you escaping from the oubliette, the dungeon that you're cast into. The feels is going to help you to strengthen and to release from it. So all info gathering is avoidance. The only thing that's better than info gathering, or that's going to get the job done, is grieving. That's what emotional literacy is. It allows you the space to become fluent in your emotions and to grieve in a way that is organic and safe and comfortable for you. Oh, Michael G. I'm just going to ask for you, Michael G. My super chat. My super chat. Do you think the psyche is mechanically coherent? Or is its goalposts moving day to day and you can never figure out its mechanics? This is your question? Or what? What is this bullshit? Well, do you think the psyche is mechanically coherent? Are you a 24-year-old philosophy student? Do you think that this kind of question fucking matters? I'm just joking, my friend. I am just make joke, Tavares. Do you think the psyche is mechanically coherent? In order to work with the human psyche, we must pretend that it is. To the extent that we're following in the Freudian model. We're treating people as though they have an illness. We're kind of acting like pseudo doctors following a pathology, the spread of a disease, a mental disease. So we must act as though there's a mechanical coherence there. So we have something to hold on to. These things are called models. Models are maps. Maps are not the territory. You then go on to ask, are its goalposts moving day to day? And you can never figure out its mechanics. So you've created a little bit of a binary there. It's either this or it's that. There is a coherent model. There are coherent mechanics. But within those coherent mechanics, it's not like, well, maybe it is like a virus, or maybe it's like any disease. Maybe they do change. The goalposts probably do change based on similar things, probably like genetics. Like it didn't manifest in this person, but they're a fucking alcoholic, and it did manifest in this person, but they are a fitness freak, and that's caused da, da, da. So there are coherent mechanics. But let me be careful here. In order to do my job, and in order for other people who do similar stuff to me to do their jobs, we all act like it's more coherent than it really is. But I don't know how untrue that is of medicine. I'm sure medicine has a lot of vague areas in it where they're like, well, we don't really know, but we'll act like it's coherent so we can do something instead of just standing around going, what? But I've lived the experience of having doctors standing around me going, what? I'm very lucky in that regard. I've led a weird life. I once got a peculiar, but not unheard of by any means, brain injury from doing martial arts, where the sac around my brain had split, and there was a fluid coming out. The fluid around your spine and your brain is highly pressured, and if anything splits, it leaks out. And I was very concussed, and I had a New Zealand neurologist there, and he was so confused by what was going on. He brought in this was a university hospital in London. He brought in streams of students. So there's streams of doctors in white coats looking at me going, can you feel your legs? We can feel his legs. Are your fingertips tingling? His fingertips aren't tingling. Can you smell weird smells? It just went on for hours. So there probably is like mechanical coherence plus shifty goalposts. So yeah, there's mechanical coherence. I adhere to like some of the Freudian models. You'll hear me talk superego, ego, and id. Introject. These are things that I find useful, but I don't over attach to them. I'm aware that they're maps and that we can get caught inside of maps. It's a good question, Mikhail. I'm sorry, it's towards the end of the hour. I'm feeling frivolous and silly now. I'm probably going to start torturing people. I can feel outside of me is coming up. The days of the moment for seriousness, I think, has passed. I think it's like that Reich, is it Wilhelm Reich cycle? Is it the orgiastic cycle, where there's like tension build up, orgasm expression, and then everything goes quiet again, and then tension build up, orgasm expression, everything goes quiet again. Beep, biddly beep, biddly beep, bop, bop, biddly beep. Richie, now you should do that. World, all of it, off music or something nice on. Maybe you're tired for the book, but you too need to relax to fill you with positive vibe. Take care. Thank you, Ziva. Vala Puno. Okay. Why did they yell, scream, and rage and break things, but say that you can't have a rational conversation when you are crying? It's gaslighting. They're emotionally dysregulated. They're gaslighting. And this is standard operational procedure for them. Yeah, I've had a doctor say they can bring in my colleagues and see their opinion. It's like WTF, Marty Stankowski. But that's healthy, right? I'd much rather that. This the Kiwi who was dealing with me, he was a cool guy. He was into martial arts as well. And he was really honest with me. He was like, I think I know what's happened here, but there were some symptoms that had showed up, and he's like, I'm not comfortable. They did an MRI scan. The plate, apparently you have a plate behind your nose, and that was broken. I had hairline fractures from the front going all the way around the back. And as I said, the sac had sort of split, had burst. And he was like, I've seen this injury over here and this injury over here, but I've never seen this combination of injuries. I'd much rather that. They just go, we don't know. And then I said, can I leave? And they're like, no, you have to stay here. They made me stay in there for 24 hours under observation just to see if I would do something interesting. I didn't. Somebody asked before, are we doing another 30-day challenge? If I have time tomorrow, I will be opening the doors for the next 30-day challenge. We won't start it tomorrow. I'll just open the doors for it. We'll probably start it the following Monday. People liked the last one. I'll be asking them to comment on it. I was really, really happy with the work that people did. Very, very happy with the work people did on it. People seem to make some real progress, which has made me want to do it again, see if we can push it a little bit further the next time around, which is great. It's really good. So when's your book coming out? These questions, they are last year. Definitely, it was coming out last year. Never quite happened, but it was supposed to be last year. I would think the way I've got my head around this is like, the Leonard Cohen lyric, forget your perfect offering, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So I was falling prey to perfectionism. And I read books recently that people had highly recommended that I thought was shit. And some of them were just badly written. And I was like, God, this is obnoxious to read. I'm really having a rough ride of this as the reader. And I was like, I definitely do better than this. So it's my first attempt at I've written other books before. I've written books on narcissism, short ones, and some on martial arts. So it's my first attempt at a full-length book. Semi-autobiographical, got stories from my own life in it, and it's going to cover everything up until now. It won't be the best book that's ever written, and people read it, and they'll probably get value for money out of it, and that's all right, isn't it? Pay £5, £7, you get a nice book, you read it, you learn a few things, you have a bit of a laugh, and you go, thank you very much, and then it's done. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Please stay grateful for everything that you do have in these times that we're living through. Remember what I said in the beginning, challenge right now is about courage. And there's an opportunity here to claim personal sovereignty. Nobody can do it for you. Don't try and set up communities. Don't make it about mass movements. It's you with you with you. You claim it. On the point of forgiveness that I started out with, forgiveness is absolutely necessary if you want to move on with your life. Doesn't mean that you forget about it or that you absolve the other person. It means that you accept fully what has actually happened, and you accept all of the consequences and all of the costs right up till today. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you sharing that time with me, and I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Cheers.